Hello everyone, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, awesome. So I'm fully aware that I'm the last thing standing between you and the happy hour from Facebook, so I'm going to make sure I make it worth your time. I'm going to talk about building an onboarding framework for your customer. And the first part will be, why should you care? Why should you care about onboarding framework? It's because all of us, we might have different marketing techniques, different sales technique. We might use Salesforce, we might use Marketo, we might use HubSpot. But the one thing we all have in common is unless we do the right onboarding, our customer will see no value in our software. And it's surprising how little effort we put into onboarding. A little word about me so that you understand where I'm coming from. I used to be the Chief Revenue Officer for Vend for almost the entire journey of Vend, and I grew sales and customer success team. So one of the things you might notice in my pitch is I have very blurry line between sales, customer success, and UX. Because what I care really about is the customer seeing value in the software? A 1-minute shameless advertisement for my company. Now we do TravelPerk. We allow you to book, manage, and report on your business travel. Now let's get really started. I'm going to divide this presentation into two parts. The first part will be the theory, the framework. How can you build a framework? And the second part will be following an example, a real-life example, so that you can see how you can apply it for your company. Let's go through that. I define this framework so that it's valid for every type of company. And as you will notice, in this framework, I'm not trying to do a flow chart. I'm not trying to go from one product features to another. This is quite different. Why? Because the first thing is to identify success. And let's make it really clear. Here, success is the customer success, not your success. So if your customer onboarding success is, I've increased the conversion from trial to pay by 20%, no, you are not doing it right. If your customer success is, the customer has sent an email using my email platform for the first time, that's success. If the success, that was the case of my previous company at Vend, one of the key success was the customer can do their first sale. They can sell using the platform for the first time. The second part is map the milestone. And at that level, when I say map the milestone, don't try to go into too much detail. Don't try to go into every single tiny step of your process. The customer is going to go from this screen to this screen to this screen. There is a time for that, but not at the beginning. The third part is find the friction. And again, find the friction at a macro level. Don't try to see my friction is between the customer uploading their CSV and the customer doing their first email campaign. No. Find the friction at high level that it's between the customer using the platform for the first time and the customer seeing the next success. Find where you are losing them on the success journey. The fourth part is clear the path. Once you have found the friction, find a way to solve it. And most of the time, there are two ways to solve it. One is technology. Change the UX. Add a new platform. There are a lot of wonderful platforms to help you with that. But the second one that you shouldn't underestimate is talk to your customer. Whether it's one-to-many, whether it's one-to-one, the friction might just be the customer don't know what to do. So it's very unscalable, but pick up the phone. Ask them why are they lost, and then try to find a way to do it in a more scalable manner. And then the last part is measure and iterate. And I want to stay 1 second on this one. Improving customer onboarding is not a project. So if in your company, improving customer onboarding suddenly pop up at your OKR for Q4, that's probably not the way you should look at it. It's a function of the company. You wouldn't imagine suddenly saying, oh, I'm going to do customer acquisition, but just for 1 quarter, and then I'm going to stop. I have enough lead for the next 5 years. The same applies for customer onboarding. It's a continuous process of improvement, so never stops. Find the next friction, improve. Find the next friction, improve. I'm going to use one real-life example. So about 6 months ago, I joined my wonderful new company called TravelPerk. And the first thing I did, applying my own principle, was to go through this process. And I'm going to walk you through the process as an example for you on how you could do it for your own company. So the first part was identifying success. How do you identify success? One key component is it needs to be for all the stakeholders. In my business, I have 2 stakeholders. I have the traveler and I have the CFO or office manager. And if that's the case for your business, you might have 1, you might have 2, you might have 3. Consider the key stakeholder and make sure the success you are defining meets the criteria for all of them. The second part is don't try to do 10 different successes and don't try to do 1. Because if you do 10, you're going to spread yourself too thin. If you do only 1, you're probably missing some step in the middle. Yes, ultimately, the goal of your company might be to have an amazing dashboard, but how do you get to this dashboard? You need to upload data, and there is this first wow moment where you see the first reporting. In our case, the first wow moment is when the customer do a search, they get results, and the results are relevant. We know that if we can get them to this moment, we have won our first battle. But what's really interesting is then to map the milestone. Start at a macro level. Of course, every single one of these steps is probably divided into another 20 different steps, and you can use a lot of different really good tools to map them. But start at a macro level. What are the key milestones to go from one success to another? Why do you go at macro level? It's because you want to make an impactful change. You just don't want to make a small incremental change of 0.1%. None of us are really at this stage. What we want to do is something that will move the needle of the growth of our company. So we want to see really where are we losing people from one stage to another. And be really ruthless. When you are doing it, measure each step and say, where is my biggest drop-off? Statistically, where is it? Our story, for example, at TravelPerk is our biggest drop-off was between the first booking and everybody using TravelPerk. So we knew people loved the software, but for some reason, it didn't spread throughout the entire organization. Once you know that, so you have identified your friction, then you need to check some hypotheses. 2 main ways to check hypotheses. 1, talk to customer. Literally, give them a call, send them an email, send a survey, whatever you want, do some qualitative feedback. The second part, do some quantitative analysis. Use any type of tool, Mixpanel, Google Analytics, whatever you want. There are a lot of wonderful tools to help you to do that. Mix both and check a couple of hypotheses. Here is the opportunity for me to give you another example. In my previous company at Vico, the key friction we had at the same stage was the setup was too complicated. And we acknowledged it, and we created an entire professional services department, and then things went much better. Just because that's what the customer needed. That's not the case of TravelPerk. The friction came from the fact that while the traveler was really happy, they didn't find enough push in the company to spread throughout the organization. That was our friction. So once you find the friction, then how do you solve it? You can look at technology. So we thought about, we're going to put a share button, we're going to put invite, but none of this really moved the needle. So we went 1 step further. We decided to basically completely change our sales and customer success process and do something that honestly is quite counterintuitive. So we all try to make our sales cycle as short as possible. And here, on purpose, we added one more step in the sales cycle. Because we knew that if we could get people to do 10 bookings from 10 different people, we had a critical mass in the company. For those who have heard about this famous talk, in the early days of Facebook, they had this matrix. 10 days, 7 requests. And it's kind of the same logic here. You need a critical mass to be able to push within a company. And that's basically what we apply here. Because we knew that was the way. And why? Not because our platform was really the issue. The problem was within the company, there was an organizational challenge. There was an apathy to change. They didn't want to change their business travel habit. So we needed sufficient support in the company to push it. So don't underestimate that not everything is about technology. Not everything is about A/B testing. Sometimes things happen outside your app. Things that will affect if the customer or not is seeing value. What was the result? This was the result. We increased the number of bookings, which is our key metrics, by 800% in 4 months. And the best part of it is we only increased the number of customers by 100%. So if you make a simple math, what we did was we didn't spend much more money acquiring customers. What we got was more customers were doing more bookings, which is exactly what we tried to solve here. Of course, if that was not the case, if we didn't see the needle moving, then we'll have to do it all over again, because that was not a needle mover. And I want to finish with 5 key lessons. The first one is put together a framework. Please. I will argue that putting together a framework is as important as a budget. You wouldn't imagine running your company without a budget? I mean, I hope. I will argue that you don't want to imagine running your company without knowing the framework of how you define customer success. The second part is define customer success events. This is where, from my experience, I see most companies skip this step. They go directly from, oh, I love what you are saying. I'm going to do the milestone journey because that's really exciting. No. If you have not done the success part of it, you cannot do the milestone journey. Because the milestone journey is how do you go from one success to the next success. So don't skip this part. The third part is don't ignore the internal challenges of an organization. For example, I give you another example from a company I know really well. When you have a dashboard or a reporting tool, it's not only about how good your reporting tool is. It could be about who is looking at it, who is making sense of the data. And if you don't address the people who make sense of the data, it doesn't matter if you have the best reporting tool in the world. So don't ignore what happened outside your platform. The fourth one is find where you have the biggest drop-off. It's extremely tempting, always, to improve where you are really good. If you are really good at acquiring customers at top of the funnel, you will be like, oh, I have a 1% conversion ratio. I just need to add more people at top of the funnel. No, find where you are weak, because this is where you're going to move the needle the most. And probably there is one thing I would like you to remember from my talk, apart from the fact that it was before the happy hour, is the last one. Don't be afraid when you do this journey that you might have to completely revamp your sales and customer success logic. You might have to create a new team. You might have to do professional services, despite the fact that you have promised yourself that you will never touch it. You might have, like in our case, to blur the line between what's sales and what's customer success, or when you consider a sales to happen. And if that's what it takes to make your customer on board, this is what you should do, because this is really what matters. Thank you.